Hi there, my name is Beatrice, and this is Sustainable Medicine 101. Like many of you watching this, I'm a physician. Medicine can be a very challenging field. Many of us go into medicine with somewhat vague, somewhat lofty ideas about helping people, about healing the sick, about maybe even saving the world if you're particularly ambitious. Maybe things like a stable source of income, or decent source of income, and prestige in your community or your family might have been in your mind as well. However, as we start to go through the practice of medicine and go through our training and learn about what the battle between sickness and health is really all about, we start to find that it's often not what we envisioned. It's challenging, it's draining, and sometimes it's very hard to keep up. This isn't anything that you're doing wrong, it's nothing that's wrong with you. These are challenges inherent to the practice of medicine. And what I'd like to propose for you today is 5 steps that you can take, starting today, to try and make the practice of medicine more sustainable for you. Because ultimately, what we want to do is to allow you to try and find peace and joy and enjoyment out of the work you do, which hopefully will spill over to other areas of your life. Because in our professional lives, if we're consistently drained, if we're consistently called upon to give more than we're able to, this is also going to affect other areas of our life. However, the converse is also true. So let's get started. I've arranged these as the 5 B's and T's to make them easier to remember, and we'll go through these one by one. Now, the first of the B's and T's is probably the easiest, and that's to breathe. And I say the easiest because this is something that you're doing already, right? We're all breathing. If we weren't, we wouldn't be alive for very long. Think about when you're running a code or resuscitation. The first things you check are the A, B's, and C's: airway, breathing, circulation, right? As they also say about codes, the first pulse you're supposed to check is your own. It's much harder to control our pulse than it is to control our breathing, though. And there's something to be said about having a little reset at times, right? If you're on your computer, you're on your laptop, and it gets really hot and overworked and overheated, sometimes it will just turn itself off, right, or stop working. Then you have to manually turn it on and off. Well, we're not able to turn ourselves on and off, but we can try and reset a little bit with our breathing when times become chaotic. There are many different breathing techniques out there to try and ground yourself in the moment, to try and bring yourself back to the present, to try and get a bit of that calmness and that inner peace that can be really valuable when life becomes a little too hectic. I'm going to give you 2 examples today, and we can do these together. The first one is called box breathing. I believe it's used a lot in military academies or with military personnel. I also called it here 1, 2, 3, 4 because that's exactly how it works. What you're going to do is you're going to inhale for 4 seconds for a count of 4. You're going to hold it for a count of 4, and then you're going to breathe out for a count of 4. And you can do that a few times. And let's try it right now, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to inhale for a count of 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to hold it for a count of 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to exhale for a count of 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's try that together. I should have exhaled first. Okay. And as you exhale, you can try and allow the stress, allow the worry, allow the thoughts to leave your mind, right? And just come back to this moment in time where you're going to take a deep breath in, Deep breath out. And remember that you're okay. Okay? Another breathing exercise is brought to us by Buddhism. And that's even less dramatic. That's just the process of clearing your mind and focusing on your breathing. Focus on, and you can try it with me as I'm speaking, focus on how the breath is coming in and out of your nose or in and out of your mouth if you've got bad allergies at the moment. Focus on how your abdomen is rising and falling, right? Focus on how the air fills your lungs and then leaves. Don't focus on the things that are stressing you. Don't focus on all the tasks you have to do. Trust me, they'll still be there in 5 or 10 seconds, however long that it takes you just to have this pause for yourself. And these pauses are really important, right? And then going back to the computer. If you expect your computer to work 24/7, looking things up for you, doing calculations, Excel spreadsheets, Word documents, whatever it is that you're working on, it's not going to do that, right? It needs timeouts. It needs time to reset itself. It needs to be turned off and on in order to reboot. And that's the same with us, right? We are not machines. We are people. Even though medicine demands a lot from us, we have to remember that in order to take care of others, we need to take care of ourselves. And these breathing pauses are really easy to do, right? You don't need a lot of time. In the beginning, you can even set a timer or an alert on your phone. And maybe every 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever you feel you need. You can be standing in clinic or on the ward. Nobody needs to know what you're doing. Nobody knows what you're doing. If you're super self-conscious, you can go to the washroom, or you can go to your office. But try to incorporate these grounding pauses throughout the day. Now, the second of the B's and T's, I said breathing was the easiest to incorporate, but they're all very doable. Some of them just require more time. Second B and T is track, okay? So first we want to track what drains us. This is very individualized. I mentioned that the practice of medicine is challenging, it's draining, but the specific things that drain you are going to be different from person to person. Taking a non-medical example, I find that cooking seems to really separate people. There are some people who hate cooking. They find it such a task, such a chore. It's so draining. And then you have those people who love cooking. They enjoy it so much. And it doesn't drain them. It actually restores them. So you want to start taking stock of, in your personal life, what are the things that drain you and what are the things that restore you, right? And this is going to become relevant in the next point. But as an example, when I was putting together this talk, I just thought really quickly about some of the things I've found that drain me and restore me. In terms of draining, I work in oncology, so breaking bad news is something that since medical school I've found particularly draining. I don't suppose many people could find it otherwise, but in the course of my work, this is something we do a lot, and it requires a great deal of energy. I'm somebody also who conflict takes a lot out of. And even if it's conflict between other people I'm not involved with, just that stress of knowing that dynamic's there and walking around it, I find that to be pretty draining. I'm somebody who's sitting in traffic, I find really draining. Even though I'm not doing anything, somehow it just seems to sap at my energy. And meetings as well. When the COVID-19 pandemic came about and a lot of things turned to virtual, I thought, oh, maybe this will be less draining. And then I found actually it's not. It's still pretty draining to sit in front of a screen and watch your facial expressions and pay attention and try and follow everything that's said. And there's only so many of those a day I can do before I start to feel really exhausted. On the flip side for me, some of the things that are restoring, right, that bring me energy, that bring me joy. I have several creative hobbies that I like to do. Walks in nature is actually a very common one, especially amongst physicians and others. I'm somebody who really likes to explore and try new things. I find that invigorating. Other people might find that stressful. And again, it's important that there's draining and restoring. This is you personally, right? It's nothing right, it's nothing wrong. It's just about knowing yourself. And then I'm somebody as well who really likes teaching. I enjoy teaching. I love teaching. Again, that's a me thing. There's many people out there who teaching would be in the draining category, and that's okay. Now, once you've spent some time tracking what drains you and what restores you, you can move on to the next of the B's and T's, which is going to be budget. Specifically, budget your time, okay? We have 24 hours in a day. We have 7 days a week. In order to practice medicine, you need energy. In order to be successful in other areas of your life, your relationships, your family, your personal hobbies, your day-to-day tasks of daily living, like getting the groceries, you need energy for that, right? So you need to keep track of what drains you and what restores you, and then make time. Make sure you're making time for those restoring activities. I know it can be really hard, right? Because the things that drain us are often the things that we have to do. They're part of our job, they're part of our responsibilities, they're part of what we need to function smoothly as an adult in society. But I'm telling you, without those restoring activities to bring your energy back, how are you going to be able to effectively do the things that drain you, right? And this is why I have this as a budget, because you need to sit down and you need to think it through. Sometimes you might have to get creative. So, for example, if you're someone who really doesn't like cooking and you're fortunate enough to live in a house with someone who loves cooking, well, maybe would they be willing to take over the cooking? And maybe you're somebody who loves walking the dog and that cooking master doesn't like walking the dog. Well, maybe you can negotiate that, right? Or on the flip side, maybe you're somebody who doesn't like cooking. Um, I've never looked into this personally, but I know that there are these subscription kits where they give you like the ingredients for food and some recipes, etc. So maybe that takes a little bit of the pressure off you, drains off a slightly less energy, so you have more energy to do other things that matter. Okay, hope you're still with me. Next of the B's and T's is talk. Okay, now if you're an introvert like me, you may see this and say, I'm not sure I like that, but hear me out, okay? So the first one is, so when I say talk, I do mean talking to others. I guess I needed to clarify that. It's not talking to yourself, you have to communicate with other people. First of all, it can't be understated, or no, it can't be overstated, sorry. Can't be said enough how important it is to speak to other people, to speak to like-minded people about some of the things you're going through, about some of the challenges you have. If you've made it any degree through medical training, you've probably realized how important it is to have medical people in your life who you can speak openly with about some of the things that you're seeing, right? In medicine, unfortunately, we see things that will haunt us, right? We see things that are difficult as humans to watch another human going through. And having someone to speak to and debrief about these things can be very helpful. Beyond this, though, we spoke about the importance of tracking what drains you and restores you, and the importance of budgeting your time. Sometimes this can be challenging to figure out just by ourselves, and speaking to other people, maybe who have similar drains or similar restoration, maybe you're part of some clubs or groups for your hobbies. This can be pretty helpful as well because there may be options or opportunities that could work for you that you didn't realize were options before. Again, since the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of online groups are coming up as well. Some of the studies that we're doing right now are focusing on Reddit groups and Reddit communities. And it's quite striking about the support groups that have formed on Reddit, both for sort of venting, but also for advice. And that's quite striking. Oh yes, Reddit, there we go. Just in case I forgot to mention that. The other point of talk is speaking to others or talking to others and telling them what you need. So remember when we were speaking about budgeting, I gave the example about if you don't like cooking and someone else in your household likes cooking, and maybe you can trade tasks that way in order to have the tasks done by the person who experiences the least amount of drainage from them, right? communicating your needs to others can also be things like, again, I'm an introvert. I need time away from people. I need time in absolute quiet to restore. And letting folks know around you that that's what you need. It's nothing against them personally. You love to spend time with them, but you also need time just to debrief by yourself and relax. Perhaps especially after a busy day at work, or maybe a day at work where things weren't going too well for you or for your patients, right? All about speaking and communicating to others. The final of the B's and T's is build, all right? Life is not static. Life is constantly in motion. One of the few things we know about life for certain is that things are never going to stay the same. While this can be sad in some capacities, we can use it to our advantage, right? And we can look towards the future. If we're just fumbling around in life and kind of stumbling and wandering and not really sure where we're going, it's hard to get there, right? If we're not sure where we're going. If on the flip side, even if we have even just a vague general idea of the direction we want to go in, we can start taking little steps to try to get there, right? We can start taking little steps to try and carve out a path towards the future we want to see. Because there are going to be changes in our lives, right? And if we have an idea of what we'd like those changes to be or where we'd like them to go, then we're going to be more likely to pay attention to when they're not going our way, right? And trying step by step, brick by brick. Again, this is not going to be an overnight thing. But if we have hope for the future, right? If we're looking forward to something in the future, if we're always looking a little ahead while staying in the present, but hoping that what's down the road is going to be good for us, and having some picture in our mind of what we want that to be, we're going to be far more likely to get there than if we just didn't have any idea at all. So something else to take some time and just think about. So in this video, I've given you the 5 B's and T's, right? 5 steps that you can start today. You can start incorporating today. You're not going to finish it today, but you can start today to try to build a more sustainable, enjoyable medical career. The first one is breathe. To take those pauses throughout the day, to reset, to ground yourself, to reboot, right? So that you can clear your head and you can move on. Track. Track what restores you, track what drains you, and then budget your time accordingly. Talk to people, find your support group, and communicate your needs. And then build your future to get where you want to be. Okay? So, I hope you enjoyed this talk. Hope it was somewhat helpful. And thank you so much for coming along.